One of the people who is about to come onto our live stream is one of those future leaders who is going to, not is trying, is going to take over the Democratic Party.
I would make peace with the shift to the left if I were you. Who is that? Dark Sage. And on Twitch. We're getting some Twitch support. All right.
So with that said, without further ado, he is not only a tremendous community activist, he is also a friend. He is the new president of the Broward chapter of the Florida Democratic Caucus, or the DPC. The
Democratic Progressive Caucus of Florida.
Got to say it right.
And it's about, but he's a force. So he's kind of like, I don't know, he's a little bit of a local celebrity. I mean, he definitely makes his rounds on different media and stuff.
Well, he ran for president. So
he did run for president, but I'm sorry, he was never old enough to be president. But
it was a thought that counts.
It was a thought. So anyway, this is Elijah Manley. He's going to, he's running again. He's running, and I said it wrong in my little video. He's running for seat. Look, I have it up here. 94.
Got it right.
Florida State House 94. And he has run before for the same seat. He ran against Bobby DuBose, who is now terming out. So it's now an open seat.
It sure is.
Hi, Elijah.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Doing good. I think let's check our mics first.
Okay. No, he's good.
Are you good? No, that's sideways.
Wait, he's doing something.
Okay.
Right up.
That's it.
Get back straight over here.
There you go. You're good.
Perfect.
Where are you? What are you doing?
Well, I'm home now.
The audio's coming in a little low, but John will let us know if you need to adjust. Maybe I would just tune the volume up a little bit.
It's skipping. Hold on. Let him get situated.
Yeah.
Is this a little better for you guys? A little better?
That's a little better.
Good.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That works. Yep. We've already got confirmation from the chat. So
all right.
That's a good sign. So listen, we wanted to bring you on. First order of business, of course, is, we're looking to grow the grassroots. And with you obviously taking over as the president of the DPCF Broward chapter, why don't you share with the audience a little bit about, what our short and maybe even long-term goals are as far as how we do build that type of grassroots energy that we really need?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, I'm really glad to have had the opportunity to be elected pretty much without opposition in the caucus. It just goes to show that progressives are pretty united within the party, and that our shared vision, our shared goals for the party really transcend any personality or any politics. And what the Progressive Caucus is here in Broward County is a caucus of like-minded individuals who are progressive, who are done with the establishment politics, who are done with the politics of the status quo, corporatism, Democrats who are not really fighting for the people, who are fighting for big money, special interests, their donors and corporations. So we are people within a party who believe that in order to build that grassroots power, we have to meet people where they're at. We have to talk about the issues facing working class people. Here in Broward County, that's what the caucus, the goal of the caucus is here. And for the short term, the goal is growing the membership of the caucus. That's been kind of hard to do with the pandemic and not being able to have in-person events or be able to, have all of the types of events we used to be able to have before the pandemic. Going forward now that we see that a lot of people are getting vaccinated and it looks like we're returning to the post-pandemic world, hopefully. It looks like there are a lot of opportunities to just do things in the community. And I think that's the important part going forward, what our caucus needs to do is really meeting people where they're at, meeting working class people where they're at in their communities.
Yeah, that's what we do. Yeah. I mean, that's what we do is we just be, when you do community service, that's where you make the most connections, build the coalition. And it's sort of like this snowball effect. And then you're also simultaneously helping people that need help. So I do think that to me, the whole idea of a campaign is a campaign for service. So it makes sense that should be the priority. I mean, for sure. So talk a little bit about your district.
Yeah, for sure. I know the boundaries of the district is going to change in the coming months, but House District 94 is a East and Central Broward-based district that covers the majority of Fort Lauderdale, including downtown Fort Lauderdale and the northwest part of Fort Lauderdale. It takes in most of Wilton Manors, including the western part, some Oakland Park, some Lauderdale, some Plantation, some Lauderdale Lake. So it's a very central Broward district. We have port areas as well as some ultra wealthy areas. It's a majority Black district, and the average income, I believe, in the district as of the 2010 census has definitely changed a little bit. Was around 40 or 50,000.
Right. So you're dealing with working class to vulnerable levels of population predominantly, and I think that that's something that I don't know that the person sitting in that seat now has done a good job addressing, because that's not my seat. But now that this is an open seat, what does it look like in terms of the field of people that are getting in this?
Well, it's, every day is looking better and better for me because it's one of those situations where with open seats, it's all about the person who has the most name recognition and who people identify the most. And having ballot name recognition has helped me a lot, has put me in a front runner position. And, with a crowded primary that puts me in the prime position for this seat, the winner of this seat is probably only going to win with about 30% of the vote, which is what I got last time. So that's a pretty good position to be coming in. And I assume I'll get most of the people who voted for me last time voting for me again. And some of Bobby's voters might cross over this time. So that's a really good position to be walking in at this current time. So far, there are about 3 of us in the race. I'm expecting there to be about maybe 6 or 7 total.
But you're the only progressive. You're the only person that would be considered a progressive. That's
non-corporate.
Non-corporate, correct.
Absolutely. And of the 2 candidates in the race that raise money, I'm the only candidate in the race who has not taken a dollar from a corporation. My opponent has taken money from developers and
there it is.
There it is.
Groups.
And just for people who don't know, that means that translates into he's all for gentrification. If somebody's taking money from developers, you better believe they're not on the side of preserving whatever dignity of any neighborhood that is there.
Elijah, what would it mean for you, obviously, when somebody says, well, if you're, we have to keep evolving, we have to keep advancing. That's why the developers are coming in and, putting up the, nice, fancy shops and all that stuff. Not that they're small business owned or anything like that. But from your perspective, what would be an alternative in terms of something that you would do in Tallahassee to really push the idea that we don't need to be in bed with these land developers? We could actually be doing this a different way. Do you have any potential ideas as to what that would look like?
Well, it's really hard to get anything through Tallahassee right now with GOP control, and then with all of the swamp of special interest groups there, a true swamp for real. But I think there are a lot of alternatives. I think when it comes to development, there are a lot of alternatives. Smart growth is important. Right now, the problem we've been seeing in Fort Lauderdale, and that's gotten a little bit better, is infrastructure and development. We have to make sure that our infrastructure can sustain the development. If we're just building high-rise after high-rise and the water system and the pipes on the ground isn't being maintained, that creates a problem down the line. For the entire district or for the entire city, where you have people in rich and poor areas who can't shower for a couple of days, or they're on a boil water notice. And that takes us to another issue, and that's the clean drinking water issue. And that ties into climate change, that ties into bit sugar, that ties into everything. So everything kind of interlocks. But when it comes to development, I think the key to development is ensuring that we have enough affordable housing for people in the district. If we're going to be developing, and as a state representative, I won't be able to stop that development. I know that is usually going to be a municipal level decision. Yeah. It's important to make sure that the cities have the dollars they need from Tallahassee, whether that's through the Sadowski Fund, Trust Fund, or through other pieces of legislation so that they can build housing. So I have a couple models for how we can do that. One, I don't think that we have a lack of affordable housing. I think we have enough housing. It's just not being maintained, the public housing that we have. We have some places that's been that hasn't been maintained since the 1980s or upgraded.
Yeah.
A lot of those places just need to be demolished. I mean, in my neighborhood, we have green apartments in our neighborhood, Cooper Properties, where they haven't been I have people calling me, every few weeks telling me we have rats, we have mold infestations, we have electrical problems, and the landlord, the company isn't doing anything about it. So what my platform calls for is just to invest in building at least 100,000 or coming up with 100,000 affordable housing units over 10 years in Broward County, because the growth we're seeing in population is going to continue over the course of the next 10 years as well. A lot of people moving to Fort Lauderdale from New York, from California, from LA, from everywhere, and they're coming here into my district, and they're moving into Fort Lauderdale. But the issue is, how are they going to afford the housing? So if there's going to be development, there needs to be a talk around infrastructure, around affordable housing, around jobs creations, around minimum wage, around healthcare. It's just a whole all-encompassing issue.
Yeah. How important, because we don't normally see this, but I think it's very important to try to develop whatever relationships you can with the local representatives, whether it be the city commission, the county commission. I think Jen's done a really good job of that with a lot of the local municipalities, especially with the initiatives we're trying to fight for with GenCorps. I don't really see that too much with elected representatives. How would you see your role evolving that maybe current representatives don't really do as far as that's concerned?
I think that a lot of legislators, when they get to Tallahassee, they do their 2 months in session. They, communicate here and there with their elected officials when it comes to the appropriations process, and then it's just done. I think as an elected representative, you need to be more in touch with the city, with the elected representatives in the city, including your mayors or city commissioners, as well as people in the homeowners associations, people in some of those city level appointed commissions, all the way down to the book club in the neighborhood, because all of those decisions that are being made, it's a whole all-encompassing network of people that are making those decisions in the community. So I think the most important thing is especially if we're talking about something like infrastructure development, a lot of the cities, a lot of the revenue that they get comes from the taxes, the property tax, but a lot of money they get comes from Tallahassee, and the way they get that money is through the appropriations process, through their state representatives and state senators, as well as through legislation that gets passed and appropriated through the budget every fiscal year. So they have to come and ask for resources, and the state representatives should be more available to those requests. And I think in my district, one of the issues we keep seeing pop up is the infrastructure and the housing issue. And if I'm elected, I think I'll be able to communicate and work with a lot of those elected officials. Some of them are supporting me in this race, some of them are not. But I think being able to have that broad coalition of those people is going to be very helpful, especially if we're talking about infrastructure or water quality. That's something that's going to affect not just Fort Lauderdale, and not just my district, but South Florida as a whole. So I think cooperation is the biggest thing. A lot of cities, they're only focused on my city, on my district, my this or my that.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, Fort Lauderdale's water is being used by Oakland Park and Wilton Manors and Tamarack and North Lauderdale. So what happens at Fort Lauderdale affects everyone else. What happens in this city will affect this city in the long run. And I think having that cooperation between all of the cities as well as their elected representatives is going to be key, especially in the next 10 years.
Yeah. And I think, what's also interesting is not that they're just related in that way, but literally the infrastructure is related. So, for example, our water supply comes from those canals that are crossing over somewhere in the Miramar area or wherever they are over in the Everglades. And those canals are where the water comes. So the water has to go through infrastructure in multiple different places. It's not like Fort Lauderdale just, all of a sudden creates its own natural spring water that it's just, bubbling up from there. So, and yet there is so much tribalism in a lot of these municipalities. And in a lot of cases, it's them passing the buck. And one of the big issues we came into contact with when we were canvassing specifically in Hollywood, and I know this is an issue in Fort Lauderdale too, is the Airbnb.
Yeah.
And what the Airbnbs are doing to a lot of the people that are residents that just want to have their normal neighborhoods. And what they found was the city said, oh, it's not us, it's the county. The county said, no, it's not us, it's Tallahassee. Tallahassee's like, no, you got to talk to him. And it goes around and around and around, and nobody does anything.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's a big issue because there's like several sides to the Airbnb. A lot of cities want to regulate it, and Tallahassee says, no, we want to preempt your ability to do that. And then, you have some people in the city that are like, I want more Airbnbs. Some people are saying, I don't want any more because it's too noisy. You got the college students coming down. You have spring break. You have people partying late at night. And then I think a lot of it is people deflecting responsibility.
Well, that's the whole thing. They don't want to say no, so they want to blame someone else. And they just like this circle of pointed fingers, and nothing's getting done to help these people that are unhappy with their representation.
Right. And I know a lot of cities are trying their best to deal with it, but then Tallahassee is making it a little harder because they are trying to pass legislation that makes it harder for you to regulate any industry as a city. They just with this HB1 bill, which does a lot more than crack down on protests, is also saying to cities, hey, you can't take any money away from police. And if you do, then we can come in as the legislature and say, no, you can't do this. And a lot of cities are I think home rule is just very important, and Tallahassee is making it harder for anything to get done, because if any progressive change is happening, Tallahassee is looking to stump it out if they have the power to do it.
Today obviously is a very somber day. The anti-protest bill did move through, not a surprise. But for somebody like yourself who very much shares Jen's vision that representation is a term of service, not a career. You are a true activist in every sense of the word. You like to be out in the field and speaking up for causes. How do you foresee this ultimately unfolding? I do think that this bill is essentially unconstitutional.
Oh, it's definitely unconstitutional.
It's going to cause a lot of problems. And I do think we're going to find out very quickly, because Earth Day is in 3 days and people are going to be out in the streets protesting.
Wait, well, just so you know, this doesn't go into effect until when? Does it say? I think
immediately.
Oh, it is immediate, because the police reform bill that I was reading about is July 1. So that's why I wasn't entirely sure that whatever they're putting through,
just goes
the fake police reform bill.
It just goes to show you, because this bill was DeSantis's brain trust, essentially. If he puts his mind to something and he wants it to get through, it's getting through.
So what's going to happen this week? What's going to happen on Earth Day, Elijah?
Well, it could be a bunch of arrests. That's what I can see happening. And HB1 passing and that going in effect immediately, just being that those protests are now criminalized, and people can just go and run people over now with their cars. A vigilante justice, what they call it. So I mean, I can say I'm afraid because I go to a lot of protests, but we saw a lot of protests for the first time last year. First time people coming out protesting, kids organizing mini protests or little rallies. I mean, now someone can just go and run people over and kill them because they're blocking traffic, or just because they're in a protest. I mean, that's just wow. And this is going to scare away a lot of people from speaking up. That's just how they roll. They roll through fear, and we can't really let them.
And unfortunately for them, they don't realize there are certain groups like the Extinction Rebellion people. They just feed on that. They're wanting to get arrested. So it's like there's certain groups that are going to be like, bring it on. I mean, it's in some ways it's going to facilitate stuff that we don't want to see, but that might be necessary. But I know that there are definitely groups that are itching for this kind of stuff, because this is going to have to be tested, but it is going to be found unconstitutional eventually. Or we're just a completely fascist state and it's all over and they've completely taken over the courts.
Right. Well, I hope not, but
I do too. I know. It's like I got a little constitution here and I know it's unconstitutional.
Well, I definitely suspect that like groups like ACLU and others might sue in court.
Oh, yeah.
It's not. It's going to be like that with a few things. I think with that bill, with the anti-trans sports bill, the other, bills that they have coming through the election.
Let's talk about the anti-trans bill, because I'm sure you're very well versed on it. This is something that I do think is often used as a wedge issue, but is also a very important issue when it's being used like weaponized like this, because the people that get hurt are the people that are our most vulnerable people. So if you would just explain what Florida's anti-trans bill looks like.
So it's entirely unnecessary bill that is addressing something that isn't even a problem right now, because there are already things in place. So essentially what it does is it bans transgender students from participating in sports virtually, as well as general inspections to ensure that a child's sex matches the team they're playing for. So essentially, it just says that, if you're a transgender woman or a transgender man, you can't play on the sports team of the gender you identify with. You have to play on the sports team of the sex you were assigned at birth, and you have to go through all of these different tests, including testing your testosterone levels, as well as general inspections. It's just entirely unnecessary. This is not a problem. I don't know any school district that's currently saying this is a problem. A lot of these young people are people who have taken puberty blockers, so they're not really getting advantages of the sex they were assigned with at birth. A lot of things I hear from Tallahassee in some of these hearings, I don't want a transgender woman or participating in women's sports because they have an advantage. And I'm like, a lot of these kids
don't though.
They don't.
No, I mean, it depends on when they transition. And I think that, like you said, this is a non-problem that's being made into a problem. And yeah, if I'm a female and I'm in a race and someone who was born male decides the day before, no, you know what, that's it, I'm going to let the world see me for who I am, I'm coming out, I'm a woman, this is it, and then they run, yeah, I got a problem. But when you're talking, that's not something that exists. People don't understand that's not how any of this works. How this works is that people are on hormone blockers for a very long time, and they actually then end up with the same strength level as what is their gender. And so I don't think, people don't understand that. And that's, I think there's a lot of miseducation about that. Right. But which is why I said this isn't an issue.
Right. And this is just like high school sports. This isn't like Olympics or anything. And I'm like, just let these kids play, because there are other consequences to this legislation that might be that I don't think they're taking into account. We already have a pretty high level of suicidality amongst trans youth, because these are young people who don't feel comfortable in a society right now because they've been attacked. They've been told they don't matter, that their identity isn't real, and just seeing this could lead to a lot of those young people feeling further marginalized, and then telling them, hey, you have a passion for sports, you're living your truth, now you can't do either. That's going to lead a lot of these young people who just want to feel, they just want to feel normal. They just want to feel at home. They just want to get their lives started. And, it's just...
Yeah, see, that's freaking me out right there. I don't understand that. So essentially what we're having is that we're having policies that are encouraging something that they're fighting against transgender people using the bathroom for the same thing. So you can look at somebody's genitalia and invade their personal space, but they can't use a bathroom because, God forbid, you were to see somebody else's genitalia. I'm not understanding how so we're wanting people to be looking at children's genitalia. How is that a good thing?
It's policy that's being made by people who don't understand not only the lifestyle, but who don't understand the issues facing these young people. I mean, if they just really took the opportunity to be educated and know what the issues were facing transgender youth, or gender nonconforming youth, then I think they'd be looking at this in an entirely different way. They'd be looking at ways to uplift these children, to make it easier for them to get jobs, to get housing. There are a lot of issues with the criminal justice system. There's issues in healthcare facing transgender young people, and as well as adults. And I part of me, to me, it just seems like it's just evil. And it's not, it's malintended for sure, but it's just evil. Not only do they not understand the lifestyle, they don't understand these issues, they don't want to. Instead, they're making it harder for these children instead of just letting these kids play the sports. It's not an issue to anyone.
But you know that really what they're doing is they're using these vulnerable people to fan flames and rile up and rally people who love to kick down. And that's really all of these things. When you're creating legislation for a problem that doesn't exist, it's why? Why are you doing that? Because you're wanting people to think it's a problem, and you're wanting people to kick down. Like, it's just.
I think it speaks to, and I think it speaks to just like the anti-protesting bill. I mean, let's say that you legitimately had concern for violence in the streets. Okay, that could be valid, and there are certain things that are already in legislation. That
yes, you're not allowed to set things on fire. You're not allowed to start violence. That's already a law, already there.
The idea. And again, this is what I would say to anybody who is in dead red. You know, you have moderate Republicans, they exist. They're just not the ones who are driving the party narrative. The people who are driving the party narratives, guys like Anthony Sabatini, I know you know who he is, but that's basically who is running the GOP in Florida, along with buddies like Matt Gaetz and Ron DeSantis. And they obviously all answer to Trump. But with that said, why do you feel the need to put a clause in this bill that says that if you are a person who's on the other side of the protest and you take out a gun and you shoot somebody, you are basically, you will have all charges lifted from you if you ever had to go to court? I'm like, this is nuts. Like, that is the type of thing, that is what should be the centerpiece of the whole bill. Why is this in here? What is the purpose of this?
Well, we know what the purpose of that is. So that when one of their crazy right-wing incel guys comes and shoots into a protest crowd, they're going to be given, immunity.
If we didn't live, because again, all the income inequality, all the issues that we're facing today, remember, and I'm sure you would agree, Elijah, most of the problems we deal with, they're all economic related. And anytime there's heavy economic anxiety in society, it's very easy to be at each other's throats.
And I think that a lot of this is angry white male incels.
Sure.
I'm sorry, I do. I think a lot of the problems that we see, you don't see women going in and shooting up places. You don't see that. And they have same mental health issues and the same access to firearms. So you can't tell me that it's mental illness and firearms. There's something going on here with these men.
I think a lot of it just goes back to the culture of America, because again, a lot of this doesn't happen in other countries.
No.
Or it happens far fewer than it happens here. So a lot of it is the culture of America, the gun culture, the culture of violence, the culture of misogyny, the culture of toxic masculinity that people grow up in, and how that's also encouraged by the state as well, and encouraged by the media, and encouraged by every aspect of the society, including religion and everything. It's just encouraged, and these people feel entitled. And, some of them might have mental health issues, some of them might not. But again, it just goes back to this culture that has to change in the country, whether that's through the guns, whether that's through entitlement, whether that's through the toxic masculinity. And that's going to take a long time to change. It's not just the guns. I know some people want to say it's just the guns. It's not just
right. No.
And it's not just mental health. A lot of it, some people might snap, and a lot of it is, again, when we see a lot of these shooters, a lot of them grew up in really nice, really nice homes, or really, with everything, they could have had, and this still happened. So, how to deal with that, that's going to be, a contentious conversation going forward. But again, we don't see this happening in a lot of communities. We do see this happening a lot with young white males, and there's a lot we can do to prevent some aspects of violence. Like, I think giving people opportunities, making sure they have jobs, they have everything they need can help, because some people could snap because they don't have access to those things. But it's a lot more to it than what we think is a whole.
Well, I mean, I think that the majority of gun violence are not the crazy guys going in with the automatic weapons and taking out and doing a mass shooting. That's a very small percentage of gun death in this country. It's a very small part. I know that, like, sort of the white neoliberal suburban housewives would love to think that if they could just ban assault weapons, the gun violence problem would go away. And it's just that only impacts a very small percentage. And the majority of it is crime out of desperation. And it's either domestic, it's familial, it's people that are just at their last straw and they just have nothing else going on. And a lot of this is stuff that's preventable, and it's not mental health related, it's desperation related. And I got to say, and I've said it before, that if my kids didn't have health care and somebody was standing in the way of my kids getting a certain thing or surgery, I don't know what I wouldn't do. I got to tell you, I don't know what I wouldn't do. And so it's not necessarily something that isn't connected to the dire circumstances. It is. And getting rid of guns is not going to, it doesn't solve it. And I'm not anti-gun reform. I'm just saying it's not a panacea that you get rid of, you ban assault weapons and now we get rid of the problem. No, because those crazy white male incels will find another way to be destructive. They'll start going like to the Timothy McVeigh school of bomb creation.
You know, we were out the other day, we do small business canvassing usually once a week, and it's on Saturday. And so on Saturday, we drove to this strip that was in, I think it was either Davie or Cooper City. But the point is, there was this shop that basically was just, I guess, what you would call video games or whatever it was that they were doing in this completely darkened, windowed building.
It's a video game place, which we didn't even look in because maybe since COVID, it's maybe there's only a few
very well
people
be true, but you kind of think about,
who are these guys?
Who are these guys? Like, are they basically just on, playing video games, violent games, if you will? I saw somebody recently doing it for like 10, 12 hours a day. I mean, there's so much to be said also for technology and how much it's an asset to us, but also a detriment at the same time.
We have no human relations.
That's another part. I do think that you factor in COVID, and now with sort of this lifting to some degree because a lot of people are getting vaccinated, you're seeing a lot of these gun mass killings or just different types of gun violence over the past month, 2 months. And I think a lot of that is just related to a lot of the societal disconnect that I think a lot of people feel. Yeah. And I think that that's a good segue because not only are you a person of color, but you are a member of the LGBT community. And
thanks for outing Elijah on our show.
Yeah, well, totally outed him.
Well,
but I am curious as to what some of the experiences are. You don't have to get into specifics, but what some of the experiences are like for you personally, knowing that society is constructed in a way to make it more difficult for you to get to where you want to be in life.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first, before I segue off of gun violence, definitely want to say gun violence is really, really big in the LGBT community too. We're still reaming over the post nightclub shooting.
Yep.
As a LGBT person, as a gay man, I've went out and I've been to the clubs, before the pandemic, of course.
Yeah. I know you're safe.
We're not going to get you in trouble.
We're not going to.
Before the pandemic, of course. But
no, you could be swinging from a chandelier in some sort of swinging singles thing, but as long as you're wearing your mask, it's all good.
Hey, I still remember when people were posting pictures on Facebook without masks on, and they just want you to know that this was before the pandemic started. Just let you know, because I don't need anyone coming down on it.
All right, so we're not going to criticize you for being part of the community. Go ahead.
Go.
Yeah, but I would go every Friday night, and I go to one of the clubs in Wilton Manors, and it'd be packed. And every time I went, I had to really think about, where's the nearest exit? This door is closed. How do I get it open? If I was here, how do I get out? Because we just never know if there is an armed lunatic might come in and start shooting up the dance floor or shooting, and there's no way for people to get out. And there's so many people, how do I not end up being one of those people that's dead? And we know we've had an individual in our community actually who was harassing the Wilton Manors community and is continuously harassing and making threats of violence. And right now I know the law enforcement system as well as the county is keeping an eye on that gentleman, but we have to think about those things all the time.
Is this someone that's in the community or somebody because for people who don't know, not everybody here is South Florida, but Wilton Manors is a very gay community. It is actually, I believe, the only commission in the entire country that is entirely LGBT, the entire commission, I believe. Yeah. So it's just a predominantly gay community. And so when people might not know that's why that was relevant.
Right. Yeah. It's a predominantly LGBT community.
Yeah.
Phenomenal community, if I might add.
Absolutely.
Well, that's where the good food is.
Yes. And it's,
for everybody, what I would always say, Elijah, what I would tell everybody is a means to dealing with the homophobia and just the differences that exist in society. If you look at the most successful small town communities in the country, Wilton Manors, Florida, Asbury Park, New Jersey, until recently, San Francisco, California, various places, wherever it is an LGBTQ dominant population, it's successful of the highest order.
It's good for property values.
Culture, food, safety, everything that you could think of. I mean, it should be endorsed tenfold.
You know, it's funny. This is a funny story. When I was growing up, my mom, she really redid our house and gutted it. And it was so pretty. And she put so much love into it. And then when it was time to sell it, she was like really wanted to make sure that she was selling it to people that were going to love the house. Like she was connected to the house. She wanted to make sure. And so this nice gay couple comes and she was so excited. And the thing is, and she'll still say, and the house still looks good. They're still taking good care of the house. They keep the awnings clean. They keep the whole thing was about, we're going to sell it to this nice gay couple and they'll keep it nice. And it is.
You know, Elijah, I think that's actually a really important, that's also another.
Yeah. What was that?
I said it's an important community within my district. Glad to have
it is. And I think, and there is also, obviously there's this sort of intersection between Black and LGBTQ that is not always an easy thing to navigate. And when we think about things like Wilton Manors and we think about gay community, we tend to think older white gay community. We don't necessarily think about more vulnerable parts of that community. And I think that is not always, I don't think we look closely enough at that. I think that it's, Wilton Manors is predominantly white, is it not?
Well, a lot of that is changing because there's always been a big Haitian population there, and it was gentrified because before it was Wilton Manors and all gay and a nice property and everything. It was a pretty big, predominantly Haitian community. It was gentrified and changed, but a lot of the Haitian population and Caribbean Americans still live in the area. So there's still a lot of diversity within not just Wilton Manors, but the Fort Lauderdale area. Within Fort Lauderdale and within the Fort Lauderdale, Oakland Park, Wilton Manors area and those neighborhoods over there, including South Middle River.
See, look at this. Here's the thing, Farming Ganja. I love the LGBTQAI. Can I just say queer? Jesse told me I could say queer. Can I just say queer? I know that I'm going to forget the letters. I get them in the wrong order. I don't know.
I think
I try my best.
I think, and you can probably speak to this a lot better than, certainly I can. I do think that a lot of the hatred that comes down on the LGBTQ community and obviously LGBTQ people of color. Excuse me. Have you found that a lot of times the people who are homophobic and have a lot of these issues, they seem to be very repressed individuals? Because when you think about the value that the LGBTQIA community brings to society as a whole, I mean, think about something as simple as just being able, to want to raise children and their ability to adopt, and the fact that a lot of people are not willing to do that, and they are. There are just so many things that I could list and say they are so valuable to our society, and yet it seems like there are so many people that want to hate them.
Yes.
And I can only think that so much of that is there's several people that I'm just from my observation, they seem to be very repressed people, maybe of their own feelings.
Well,
how do you see it?
Yeah.
Well, that's always a possibility. There's always people who, it's like in high school and you get, a lot of people, I still find to this day, I'll be, finding out that somebody who was a little mean in high school or middle school turns out to be gay now. So, that's always a possibility that someone can be repressed and they're taking that out on other people, or they see other people who are living their truth and they can't live their truth yet. And so they're taking that out, or they're repressing that, or it's also toxic masculinity and people who may not be repressed, who may not be LGBT, who would really feel that anything that threatens their masculinity is a threat to them, or they feel anything that's not masculine is threatening their masculinity, or that's not heterosexual, or anything that's not the.
Yeah, religion is not always on the side of progress. That's for sure.
That is definitely true. But I think that, that's generally it could be either or. I mean, some people are just hateful people. They're just.
Yes, there's people that are just not nice.
Yeah, and we have this.
There's just people that are not nice.
And we have this very big problem in society called punching down. And rather than really fight your oppressors, which is really what we need to do as a whole, you find it easier to attack the most vulnerable because you perceive them as being more weak. And that's the mindset that we're desperately trying to change, because it's the core issues that we are all united on, whether it is healthcare, whether it is a living wage, whether it is the environment, whether it is criminal justice reform, whether it's ending the pointless wars. I mean, we could go on and on with the overwhelming majority of issues that most people agree on. It's when you get into the weeds with these very calculated wedge issues that come up, like what the GOP has been doing as of late. This is what keeps us divided and conquered, and we're trying to change.
Yes, but then it's using people like the trans folk as like the bait.
Of course, but that's the whole point. But the reality is, I do think a lot of people are starting to see through it. You're always going to have someone of that old guard, and we know in Florida that things tend to not move anywhere near as quick as they should. But I do think that if we are able to bring about that generational change, if you will, with bringing in representatives such as yourself who understand what it takes to evolve and progress, that is when the real change is going to happen. So as we usually like to do at the end of every podcast is ask our special esteemed guests such as yourself, what does generational change mean to you?
Well, that's a good question, because, I've been trying to get some generational change for quite a bit over here in politics down there.
I was going to say, like, when I think of generational change, you could actually be like the poster child for generational change. Like, if I were to think of who do I think of when I think of that? I think of you.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. I mean, there's a few others in there too, but like, I think of your ilk. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we can really use that here. In Florida politics, there isn't a lot of people my age in politics. So we only have one person in their early 20s in the Florida legislature on the Republican side. And, just in politics in general, there are not voices. So definitely a generational change is definitely one of age, but also one of ideas to me as well. A change from the current status quo, the current era of politics, to a new era where we're really putting people first. And we're doing our best to fight for the everyday working family. And I definitely see myself as one of those people who are going to bring that change here in Broward County, Florida, and in Florida politics in general. And it has been done before. It can happen again. I mean, we've seen this in the past. Gillum was first elected to office when he was 23. A lot of people don't know that. He was our youngest Black elected official in history here. And for that time, for that time back in the early 2000s, that was a big thing, a 23-year-old. And, now, people see this happening and they see a 22-year-old running. A lot of people will say, he doesn't have the experience, or he doesn't have the ability to represent us well. But what a lot of people forget is that, different people have different experiences in their lives at different ages, at different stages in their lives. Some people grow up with silver spoons in their mouth. Some people don't. Some people have different experiences earlier in their life. Some people have them later. And I think in my situation, in my case, I've been able to take the experiences I've had and develop a political program that will work for the community I grew up in. So we're seeing that. I think I brought a lot of that here. We have a lot of young people now running for office here in Broward and in South Florida and across the country too. I have every few weeks I have somebody from another state somewhere, reaching out asking me to, give them some advice on running for office, and I think that's a really good thing.
So how can people find you? What's your website? What's your info so everybody can find you? Everybody needs to, Elijah is really someone who walks the walk, people. This is someone who really serves the community and is always out and stands up for people that can't stand up for themselves, and is really the future of what we're trying to do here. Mm-hmm. So I encourage everybody to support. What's your site? So
my website is ElijahManley.com. And I encourage people to go there and and definitely check out the platform, check out my story. We're going to have more information, but definitely more about my personal background, what got me here. We're looking forward to having, potentially a special election this year within the next few months for this seat. So we'll definitely need all hands on board. And if anyone wants to volunteer, help out.
Wait. Why is it special election?
Bobby might be running for Congress.
Oh, is he going to get in that too?
Why not?
Oh my, everybody and their mother's jumping in on that. So yeah, R.I.P. Elsie. All the vultures.
If only we had
all the vultures.
If only we had term limits.
Well, here's the thing, and this is something that's important to me. I almost feel like I need to give Elijah an extra stamp of approval because we talk about this regularly. But there is a very big difference between a candidate that runs for an open seat and a candidate that has the balls to run up against an incumbent. Those are very different things.
Oh, yes.
So now that you have an open seat where Elsie is concerned, all of the people are going to come out of the woodwork that didn't have the balls to do it while he was alive, and they sit and wait their turn, and they perpetuate this system the way it is because it serves them too. And all those people, and I find it disgusting, and so I want to give Elijah and everyone to know that he gets the special stamp of approval because he has been running, and he ran for this seat against the sitting incumbent, and he doesn't make decisions whether or not to run based on whether or not it's an open seat, and he, it's not about that. Yeah. So, and I am just like, for me, I find it very hard to support and endorse candidates that I know just sit and wait their turn, because that means that you're being complacent, because what are you doing in the meantime?
It means that you are not serving your community. It means you are looking at this as a career,
correct,
which is not what this is supposed to be.
And it's cowardly. It's cowardly, quite honestly. If you don't have the balls to stand up and fight for something when it's a fight, I'm sorry. I find that a very different race. I find and Elijah, you obviously had a pretty good relationship with Representative Hastings. The one thing I always credited Elsie for, he never took his opponents for granted. He debated Sheila McCormick when she ran against him, even though there were probably a lot of people in the establishment who would not have wanted him to do that. But, he had the attitude of, look, I was part of the civil rights era, and I am with my great power comes great responsibility. Now, I may be able to sit here as long as I want, but I don't want to discourage people from getting involved in the political process, where there are a lot of other people who do discourage others because for them, they're looking at it from a career standpoint. And that's what we're trying to change. And even if you are in politics for a long time, you're in it for the right reasons. And that is why we are more than happy to have you on. We are obviously huge supporters of what you're doing. Everybody support Elijah because he is the real deal, and he's fierce.
We will definitely have you back.
Before I go, I'll definitely say, still pretty sad about Congressman Hastings passing. I definitely wish he was still here so everyone will continue to wait and not, seeing all of these people trying to run for all these different seats is so annoying now. But he was, truly someone, I've been told by a lot of people to just sit back and wait or don't run and all of this stuff. He never ever told me that. He told me when we first met when I was a teenager and when I was thinking about running, he said, hey, I ran 8 times. It's okay. You'll get there. And he was always an encouragement. He always listened to me. And, there were things we didn't agree on. Domestic and foreign policy we didn't agree on, but he always took me serious, and he really cared about the young person, the underdog. And, I have great admiration for him. He was actually my first ever endorsement when I ran for the school board back in 2018. Nobody else wanted to endorse me, but he gave me that stamp of approval. And I chose not to really run and make that endorsement a big thing at that time. But, I still have a lot of admiration for being able to call up my congressman and rant about things and argue about things and have somebody actually listen. And I think, that's the type of representative I want to be. I want to listen to everyone in my district, be accessible to them, and really be someone who they can, look up to, and they know that's going to care about the issues they face. A lot of legislators don't treat the state legislature like a full-time job. But for me, I'll treat it like a full-time job plus half more. That's important.
Well, I have no doubt that you will make him proud in whatever legacy you leave as well.
Yeah.
So with that
Everyone
said,
support Elijah.
definitely go to ElijahManley.com. We highly encourage that you also follow him on social media. All that information obviously is on ElijahManley.com. And don't forget, he is the new president of the Democratic Progressive Caucus of Florida.
And he
Broward
might
chapter.
be a representative sooner rather than later, depending on what happens.
If Mr. DuBose decides to get in the race, which is now that there are multiple established challengers to Commissioner Holness, it does look like this is going to be a big field. So with that said, it is probably likely that that's what's going to happen. So ultimately, but we all know how things
look, as long as it benefits Elijah.
Yes, we all know how slow things move in Florida. So with Governor DeSantis knowing how long he'll take to make a decision as to when this
he's in no hurry to help that seat.
No,
I can tell you that.
Just like we were supposed to have redistricting established this month, and now at the earliest it's going to be September. I don't think it's going to be ready in September. I just have a feeling. I just got a funny feeling, but we'll see what happens. We really appreciate it, my
Elijah.
friend. And we definitely will be more than happy to have you back again soon. Hopefully, if the race comes to pass sooner rather than later.
Hey, and once you're a rep in Tallahassee, you're still going to have to come back on the show.
Yes, of course.
Please do. Oh yeah, I wouldn't mind that in the middle of the session.
There you go. Thanks, Elijah.
Have a great evening, my friend.
You too. Thank you, guys.
Talk to you soon.
You too.
Thanks for watching. If you want to support our mission to transform politics into service, please like this video, subscribe, follow us on social media, and consider joining our Patreon, where you'll get early access to our interviews as well as other exclusive content. Links are in the description. Peace out.